We entertained? Did you enjoy all that great football we just got treated to?
It was great.
Normally, wild card weekend's the tough one. The next round's the good one, right? I mean, wild card, you get one or two of these teams not ready to play in the NFL or in the playoffs, and we get some bad games. But to your credit, you said every one of these games is going to be close, and every single one of these games was a one-possession game down to the end.
Yeah.
That was spectacular. We got a lot to talk about.
Boom, Jeremy is the first comment. Holy jeez. What? Jeremy, or if you really are Jeremy, we'd like our other Jeremy back because this is way too early in the show to see you, but we're glad you're here already, man.
Absolutely.
Luke, good to see you. And there was somebody, and we don't want to give credit out there, but there was somebody that called exactly like this, exactly like it would be. He said, all the road teams will win -1, it'd be the Texans.
Good to see you, Luke. Good to see you, Michael. If Andrew didn't say it, he might have just said it. I wasn't listening to him. Typical for me. Wild weekend. And, man, were any of the games disappointing? Did any of the games let you down a little bit? Because I'm not going to lie to you. That Seahawks game, as good as it was, as close as it stayed all the way through, I can't help but feel like Carson Wentz out there on the field would have been the difference.
It is another season down, and Carson Wentz doesn't play a playoff game. I don't care if he played. He didn't play a playoff game. He did not play a playoff game.
9 minutes doesn't count?
No, it does not.
You got to at least get to the first quarter before you get credit, right?
Right, exactly. It's a shame, man. It's a shame.
We'll talk about that and more forward. Another game.
Are we not doing that one first? I thought you wanted
Well, we can. No, let's do it first. Why not? Let's go in reverse. Let's go in reverse. We always go back to front, but let's talk about the game just happened.
Yeah.
This one, fresh in everybody's mind, absolutely wild, guys. Bees, good to see you. Frank, good to see you. Whew, man, this one, I was nervous for the Seahawks. I thought for sure I was going to pick wrong on this game because the Eagles, even with Josh McCown, seemed like they had enough of a spark with Miles Sanders, the way he was just breaking off some runs at the most opportune times, that they were going to get the job done. I mean, Zach Ertz, despite broken ribs, just battling his way through, making a clutch catch or two. What is it with the Eagles and these backup quarterbacks that they're always in the fight in the playoffs? Dude, are they just that good of a team?
How important would it be right now to have Nick Foles coming off the bench? How important would it be for the Eagles to have someone like Nick Foles come off the bench? I mean, nothing against Josh McCown, but he's not no Nick Foles. I mean, that's just plain and simple.
Is that the first thing they need to do in this offseason is secure a better backup quarterback? I mean, I was going to talk about this in a minute. I'm going to do comments in just a sec, guys. But this, to me, is exactly what I thought when Josh McCown came in. They need a better backup quarterback coming in this game that they can afford because now Carson Wentz is on this big, massive contract.
Right.
They need to find more talent for equal or just barely more money than what they're paying Josh McCown right now because you can't count on him. This is year three in a row that he's let them down in the playoffs, and he has not been there for it. And even though I'm not the guy that's like, oh, get rid of him, or it's time to move on from Carson Wentz.
I could be that guy.
I know you were ready to kill Josh Allen before he tried lateraling in that Houston game. You have to look at this and say we need to have almost a relief pitcher to come in this because we just can't trust the kid. Until I see it, we have to have a better option. Are you of the same mindset?
Yeah, no, I agree. If it's through free agency and getting a veteran, then so be it. Or if it's drafting a quarterback, so be it. But it needs to happen. There's a legitimate issue, and I'm with you. The contract that was given to Carson Wentz, they're
in bed together.
Yeah, they're doing it. So they're stuck.
Okay.
They're stuck with the partnership that they've created. No doubt about it. Let's get to some of these comments before we make more fools of ourselves.
Michael says, all the games were awesome, man. I totally agree with you. Even if it wasn't the best football, it was entertaining. The mistakes and the comedy of errors that I saw in both the Houston and Buffalo game, as well as Seattle and the Eagles not looking good, it kept the game close. Even though I think Houston was more disappointing when you look at both of those guys having their starting quarterbacks, everything else. I mean, Seattle plays everybody close.
Yeah, no, they really do. They're not one of those teams to really break away with scoring and take it away. Even though I think they're a team built to do that, they don't. For some reason, it doesn't happen. B says, out with the old and in with the new quarterbacks. Yeah. They still got a couple of ones.
I'm going to save it for the Saints, but I have a pretty good topic about that. I want to start talking about load management with old quarterbacks in the NFL. I know every NBA fan saying, no, load management gives me worse product. But if your goal is to win a Super Bowl, do we need to start talking about load management for some of these 40-year-old men trying to make it in a 20-year-old man's game? Ian also says, hey guys, how about them Vikings? He's still going with Kansas City versus Minnesota in the Super Bowl. Would you like to see that?
I mean, yeah, I'd watch it. Obviously.
Well, yes, but I'm saying, is that the matchup you'd like?
No.
I think Minnesota showed that they're a legit team today.
Oh, well, I was looking at it as the Kansas City side. I don't really want to play Minnesota again. We beat them once. It's hard to beat a second team the same team twice.
But weren't you the one just telling me that? Oh, we did it with Matt Moore. Not even worried about it.
We did do it with Matt Moore. So it's okay. It'd be a great matchup. I'd love it.
Frank, good to see you. He says congrats to the Titans. Thank you.
Jeremy made some money.
I'm taking a victory lap this entire show because I think the fun might come to an end next week.
Then run around. Jeremy said he made some money this weekend, man. Good for you. Austin, good to see you. He says, holy crap, it has been an amazing week of wild card football. I don't know if you said that one, but I feel like you did. Ken said, thank you, Titans, for taking the Patriots out.
Personally, Ken, from me to you, you are 100% welcome. All me. It's because I believed in them. No, but who would have thought Ryan Tannehill would throw for less than 100 yards and the Titans would still win that game?
Yeah, statistically it looked terrible, but realistically he played a good game.
It was good. Well, it wasn't his best. Definitely not his best. And then you look at the pressure.
It's a good game.
The offensive line we're not talking about that yet. We'll talk about that game later. But yes, the Titans did, I think, just about everybody. I've never seen that kind of outpouring of memes, except maybe the Super Bowl last year, from everyone just celebrating the Patriots are gone. And I've heard, whether people are joking or not, saying the Patriots dynasty is over. We'll talk about that when we talk about that game, but are we laying the beast to rest a little too early?
Way too early. Neil, I don't know if we said glad you're here, but we are glad you're here. He says, Jake, good game, disappointed, but we'll be there next year.
Thanks for being a good sport about it, Neil. I've seen a lot of bad sport Patriot fans out there, but I've seen some good ones too. So if you're one of the good sport Patriot fans...
It's because we live in Titan Nation, and Titan fans, not you, majority of them, are kind of like...
Don't say obnoxious.
Obnoxious winners.
Don't say obnoxious. Well, yeah, I'll give you that. But then again, who's not an obnoxious winner?
Chiefs.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I'm going to just let that one lie. I can't
Jeremy says Nick Foles wins that game.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So does Carson Wentz if he survived that.
So does probably
35 other quarterbacks that aren't Josh McCown. And I've liked Josh McCown as a backup quarterback.
I was trying to get
40,
a number, but that makes sense. Yeah.
You agree with 35? What's the over-under? Would you take the over on that? Could it be like 37?
I mean, okay, does Teddy Bridgewater win that game?
Yeah. I think so.
Does
Teddy
Matt Moore win that game?
Yeah, I think so.
Does Joe Flacco win that game?
Yes. Begrudgingly, yes, because I think Joe Flacco's still better than Matt Moore.
There's a reason.
Maybe not by a lot.
There's a reason Josh McCown was retiring.
Yeah. At 40, he's not the 35th best quarterback in the league. Anyway, Luke says the Patriots game, it was too defensive. Yes, but I mean, both of these defenses stepped up, and I was screaming at the television all night long because the Titans did nothing but rush 3 guys. Again, we're not talking about that game yet. But when we do, I'm going to talk about that and the defensive calls for the Titans. Remind me, because I have a bulletin board worth of just points I want to talk about in that game. I burnt it. Specific.
I burnt it so you couldn't go off of it. Eric, good to see you. He says, go Pack, go. Excited for his matchup against the Seahawks. It's going to be a good game.
I bet you anything, though, the Pats were hoping this was the Eagles. Even with a healthy Carson Wentz. Wouldn't you rather... and not necessarily... I'm not taking a shot at the Eagles here. I think they just don't want to go face this running game that Seattle's likely to put out there because they have 2 great pass rushers in Green Bay. You know what they don't really have? A solid defensive line on the interior, solid defensive interior. They are going to have a tough time, I think, slowing down the Seattle offense if they're able to run the ball at will. That's going to be the biggest question for Green Bay going into next week.
To be honest, I look at it completely opposite. I think how in the world the Seahawks are going to be able to keep up with everything that Green Bay is going to be doing. I like Seattle. I obviously like Russell Wilson. I like Tyler Lockett. I think DK Metcalf looks like a legitimate pro in this league.
What a game, by the way.
Right, for him. But, man, when you look away at the Packers can play and if Aaron Rodgers is on fire, I don't know if the Seahawks had the willpower to beat a team like this. I'm just... This game did not impress me. This game was like you took out Carson Wentz and you were 1 touchdown away from losing this game.
Yeah.
And why? You know what I mean? Why?
Yeah, but haven't we been saying that about the Seahawks?
Like no, we have.
And we said it about the Packers. Let's not mince words here. The Packers have had a lot of those games too.
But this isn't the Legion of Boom. No. This isn't a young Russell Wilson with, not that he's old, with a bunch of running backs that can run the ball.
Well, they're missing their 3 top guys.
Exactly. That's my
3
point.
of them. And they still managed to do okay on the ground. I mean,
well, that's why
they're not going to be facing this defensive line. They're not facing Fletcher Cox next week.
But realistically, Fletcher Cox had a down year this year.
Down year. But did you see him in this game? He was just wrecking that that Seattle offensive line.
He just stood up and never moved.
I know. Well, no, he was through. He was just
but that's what my point
people.
was. Is no one was moving him.
Exactly. He had his way with the Seahawks interior. The fact that the Eagles kept this one as close as they did, even with someone like Josh McCown, shows you that they had a chance here. I think it's partially on the Seahawks' inability to finish. You want to see a team just put their boot on somebody's throat. They could have done that a couple times during the first half, and then a couple times during the second half. They just couldn't get the job done. And I think one of the key plays in this game that we're all overlooking is the Derek Barnett roughing the passer. That would have been like 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 7, and instead they give the Seahawks a first down and allow them to run the ball inside 2 minutes. If they don't do that and they don't get that touchdown there, this game could absolutely have changed. At that point, you need a field goal, or at that point, a touchdown wins you the game. The entire texture of the game changes. I think that mistake right there is what cost the Eagles probably this win. Or at the very least, it cost them a chance to take the lead at the end of the game.
Charlie, it has been a long time, and we're glad to see you. Sean, we're glad you're here. Chris, good to see you as well. If you want to hit some of these comments, I got to write down a lot of names, man.
Absolutely. Austin, he says he saw something that said Wentz's wife was escorted to the locker room mid-game. He wonders if the head injury is more serious than normal. I don't know. Again, I saw it. Carson Wentz looked like he was okay, and then the independent experts stopped it. It might have just been a concussion, and she wanted to be with him. It's hard to say. It's hard to read between the lines. But I will say this. When they pulled him out of the game, I was like, this is just the cost of player safety. I know there's going to be a lot of Eagles fans complaining about this, but if we are serious about protecting these players and trying to lengthen careers and lengthen these guys' lives, especially once they get out of the league, these are the kind of calls you have to make, because 10 years ago, he's still in the game. 5 years ago even, I think he might still be in the game. I think this is just a kind of a symbol of where we're at now. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Again, I don't want anything bad to happen to Carson Wentz, but he certainly did not seem to be showing any kind of symptoms when he got up. He looked like he was okay to me. And that's why concussions are so tricky and so scary, because you can't always tell.
Right. Dalton, good to see you. Cameron, good to see you as well. Scott's in here. Eric Freeman, good to see you, man. We're glad you're here. John is in here. Guys, I think that when I look at all these games, and I know we're getting kind of ahead of ourselves with everything, it's like this is what the NFL wanted. They wanted good, close games. Yeah. This is what they exactly wanted. You're seeing some of the old names kind of booted out. I don't know if they wanted that, but some of these young guys, up-and-coming teams, you got to give it to the Titans at this point. They are an up-and-coming team. Majority of their roster is young.
Well, here's an interesting stat. There have been 4 teams in the past 4 years to have winning records. The Chiefs, the Seahawks, the Patriots, and you guessed it, the Tennessee Titans. So I'm with you. They are up and coming. They haven't had the highs that some of these other teams have had, but I think this is a team that just needs to find a way to turn the corner, and they can be one of these greats in the league. It's just, will they be able to do that? I mean, the Titans have been trying to do that for a while. That's where I have my doubts. A couple more here. Chris, great. He says, great weekend of football. The Patriots go down. He was pulling for the Bills. Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that game towards the end, but that game to me, I was kind of saying that I just didn't feel like the Bills were quite there yet. I said it's going to take another year. I just don't believe in as young of a quarterback as Josh Allen as he is. I said he was 20 before. He's actually 23. So I was thinking Tremaine Edmonds, who was 19 when he came out. Still, young quarterback. Usually, guys, and you'll notice this, if you look at Tannehill, this was his first playoff start. If you look at Lamar Jackson and his first playoff start, even Carson Wentz in this game, he wasn't incredibly sharp. He looked okay, but he wasn't incredibly sharp. Guys struggle in their first playoff game. I don't know whether it's nerves or whatever you want to call it. I think that definitely came to affect Josh Allen, especially in the early part of that game, because they were able to run. But once the Texans kind of settled down and started to stop the run a little bit more, the Bills' offense just died.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was completely distracted.
That is okay. We'll move on. I don't mind having the last word. We'll go on to the next comment here. John, Cameron, he says he called it. The Titans go into Foxborough and will be known as the team that put the final nail in the coffin. They wrecked the dynasty. Do we want to talk about this? Isn't Tom Brady coming back? Do you really think the Patriots are moving on?
You can't say you wrecked the dynasty when you beat them after how many runs of the Super Bowl?
Well, I actually told you last year's when we wrecked the dynasty. That was the beginning of the end for the Patriots. They were like, man, we just lost 34-10 to the Titans. We got one left, but this is it. I think we're kind of putting them in the grave a little too early.
I think Father Time is what beat the dynasty of the Patriots. It's a great little asterisk you could put by that game for you Titans fans, if you want to call it that way. But I don't see it that way. Beyond that pick six, they kept right next to you. The game was close, and let's admit it. Derrick Henry had his way with that defense.
He did, and I think you got to give credit to the offensive line that even though they got absolutely manhandled in the passing game, they did enough on the ground in the ground game to run against a good rush defense. And I think even though I want to say Derrick Henry's a beast, and he's still the main factor or the reason the Titans won, we shouldn't overlook the offensive line and the job they did in the running game either. Because there were a lot of plays where Derrick Henry had 7, 8, 9 yards before he got touched.
Yeah.
And that's incredibly important when we're talking about that. Scott says, roll Titans. He hears me. Thank you, Scott. Thank you. Again, still on my victory lap. I got to enjoy it while I can, Drew. Baltimore's next week. It's going to be tough.
Dalton says, you got to give some love to the Texans. They do so much with so little. I'll give you that. Let's see what you do against Kansas City. The Bills.
This should have been a better performance. Again, Houston has been one of those teams that sometimes they look amazing. And then they have games like against Denver, like against Baltimore, like in this game where I just feel like they don't look like they're ready for anything. They come out flat-footed. I mean, if you look, they went down, 16-0 to the Bills. And if the Bills had a little bit more of a killer instinct and scored a couple touchdowns instead of those field goals, it would have been over in the first half. Instead, they hang around. The Bills don't quite get the job done. They kick field goals. And then next thing you know, the Texans are back, and they make enough plays to get it done. One other thing I want to complain about, I really didn't like the Deshaun Watson comment at the end of the game where he said, somebody had to be great, why not me? I mean, he did a good job of avoiding pressure, but he threw the ball to the line of scrimmage to a wide-open running back who then dodged tackles and kind of ran 40 yards up the field. Isn't that the best opportunity to say, man, we both played great on that play, or what a great play by my running back? I just, maybe a little bit of humility there. I would have been like, that probably would have been the right call. You threw the ball to a wide-open guy standing on the line of scrimmage.
Chris, man, it's good to see you.
Am I wrong?
Bill,
dude, am I wrong?
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Bill, good to see you. He said his son predicted the Titans win. He actually predicted the score, and Titans 19 to Patriots 13.
Just this close. Almost had it. Vrabel almost helped you out.
Almost did it. John, good to see you. He says Tom Brady has... Oh, I already said good to see you. Well, I'm glad you're still here. He says Tom Brady has no weapons. Is that...
Well, okay, but...
We're jumping a game. But I got a question for you. Is that the legitimate reason why the Patriots lost?
No, Tom Brady was the weak point. I mean, when you say no weapons, there are a lot of teams that have fewer weapons than the Patriots. They still have Julian Edelman, and you're going to say, oh, he's old. He made a mistake or two in this game. Yeah, he dropped, I think 2 passes. One of them, he was absolutely laying down. The other one was actually a bad drop. But he has Julian Edelman still. I think Julian Edelman is still a fine weapon. He still has great running backs in Sony Michel. They have James White. They have an effective guy in Rex Burkhead. They have an amazing offensive line. If you watch that game, there was no pressure on him. The Titans rushed 3 guys for like 50% of the plays, and when they didn't, they rushed 4 because they looked at Tom Brady and they said, he's the weak link of this offense. We're going to drop back, and we're going to see if you can beat us. The reason the Patriots lost this game is because he doesn't have the arm strength to throw down the field anymore. He had all day to throw, and they did not try to test him down the field at all. And part of that is up to the weapons, but they have Mohamed Sanu now too. They have enough guys that when they rush 3 defenders, you punish them deep down the field. You have all day to throw. You wait, get the guy open down the field, and you punish him. Brady couldn't do that. And don't get me wrong, Brady has been a great quarterback, but we need to call a spade here. Just like with Peyton Manning, age has caught up to Tom Brady, and he is not the same quarterback he's been.
Cameron says there's no doubt Father Time is the main factor in the Patriots dynasty ending. He just can't wait to see all those bandwagon fans start jumping off ship. He just doesn't want any on the Titans wagon. Well, don't worry.
Just wait to see who wins the Super Bowl.
Don't worry, that's not going to happen.
And Scott says Derrick Henry is a human sledgehammer. And you know what the crazy thing is? If you could take Marshawn Lynch's brain and put it into Derrick Henry's body, you would have the ultimate running back. I actually don't think he's very physical or as physical as he could be for a guy that size. He does a lot of shimmying and a lot of shaking to avoid contact sometimes, and that's okay. When you have his speed, you can do that. I think Derrick Henry, he's not Marion Barber.
That's a knock on your guy, man. I mean,
it's not a knock. It's just describing his running style. I mean, he's not Marion Barber that just puts the head down and battering rams.
He leads a lot of your huddles wherever he's your verbal leader. I mean, you really bashed your guy right there.
That is not a bash. You're trying to create create controversy here, Drew. All right, take a step back.
You
That's
said
not a bash.
take his brain out and give it to Marshawn Lynch.
No, I said if you could take Marshawn Lynch's...
Give him
is Marshawn Lynch
breaks.
afraid of contact? Not that Derrick Henry's afraid
So
of contact.
you just want Marshawn Lynch non-fear of contact is what you want. Not his brain.
Well, you get what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's stupid. That's not what I'm saying.
That's what I took it as.
Okay. Well, you took it wrong. You misinterpreted.
Everyone else here took it wrong.
Oh, is that what it is?
Or took it right.
What I'm saying is Derrick Henry does not seek out contact. Derrick Henry actually seeks to avoid contact, but then when he gets a hold of, he stiff arms very well. He will put the shoulder down. I'm not saying he's totally afraid of it, but what he does is tries to avoid the play, get into open space, and then run. And that's good. That can work. And when you have his speed, that's why he breaks so many long touchdowns. But there's also a lot of times where you would just love to see Derrick Henry go and just steamroll some guys, and we don't quite get that. I mean, for a man that size, it's not like Marshawn Lynch when you watch him run, where you're just like, Lynch is excited to hit somebody.
Scott says Henry will last longer with doing what he's doing.
Yes.
Charlie says beast mode has been looking like he's been in feast mode.
Yes. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing.
And JDZ, good to see you. He says Seahawks for the win. Stoked about that win. Rob, good to see you as well. He says he hates playing Seattle in the playoffs. They have a history of ending Green Bay's season. Well, luckily, that doesn't have to happen, buddy.
Ian says Tom Brady to Tennessee as a free agent. We couldn't protect him. He wouldn't consider us. Did you see our pass protection? I think if you haven't watched the Titans all game long and you're Tom Brady and you're on the sideline and you look what they did to Ryan Tannehill, you're like, that ain't going to be me next season. That will not happen. I'll go to Tampa Bay first. I don't think Tom Brady is on his way out of Foxborough, but even if he leaves, he's going to go to somewhere like Indianapolis that's going to try to protect him.
Neil said the Titans and Chiefs in the AFC Championship, and the bar is going to be closed for a week.
No, we'll be here. We will be here, and someone will just have to be...
Upset.
Upset is a great word. Maybe not quite powerful enough, but it's a great word.
Don't worry, we got plenty of liquor. We'll be fine.
Fist fight incoming, but that's okay. I mean... Hopefully, I'm just on the right end of that game. Chris says Carson Wentz went down in the first half with a head injury. He says the 49ers are going to win next Saturday. All over the board a little bit, Chris, but you're absolutely right. Again, the Eagles have a concern going forward with Carson Wentz. We're going to talk about that all offseason. I feel like that is the prevailing topic when it comes to Carson Wentz. It's not, is he talented? It's not, can he throw it? Can he make it in this league? It's, what about these injuries? I think that's now the biggest red line or red mark all over Carson Wentz's resume at this point.
Yeah, no, it's an issue. There's no doubt.
Are you ready to talk about the Vikings and the Saints?
Yeah, let's do it, because talk about a great game. I want to say it was like kind of boring, like maybe like second quarter. We were like, man.
Somebody do something. Come on. You're supposed to be high scoring.
Somebody go. But it never really dulled the senses. I mean, it was still a great game. I'm not calling you out, but you said the Saints are the most complete team in the NFL.
And they are. And both of these teams are more complete than Kansas City. And that's why it was such a good game, because both of these teams play good defense, and that's what we saw today.
Okay. I'm just listening to you.
I'm just preempting your point.
No. That's not my point. Go
ahead.
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
If I was going to do a power ranking at this point, I'd probably put the Saints at number one before the loss of this game. This is a significant loss. This is a huge loss, and I think when you look at what's going on with with Drew Brees and Tom Brady, for that matter, is how long do you keep on trying to get victories or Super Bowl wins with aging quarterbacks? And it's not that Drew Brees is failing, but he's not doing enough at the same time. Well, if that makes sense.
Right, and here's what I want to talk about. I didn't feel like Drew Brees was bad in this game. I mean, obviously, if you look at the stats, it kind of supports that he was actually pretty good. I mean, 208 yards, so maybe he could have thrown for a little bit more, but he's 26 to 33, so efficient. He was 1-1, one touchdown, one interception. Brees looked okay. What I kind of want to point to, though, when I talk about the Saints is, did we kind of learn this year that when you have this old of a guy, that taking 5 or 6 weeks off during the regular season, especially if you're a good enough team to get by without him, when you have a Teddy Bridgewater, when you have a Taysom Hill that can come in and play and you don't drop just drastically in talent, is that the best case? Because even though they lost this game, Drew Brees still looked a lot better than he did going into the year where they played the Rams and lost it due to a bad call, because he looked washed up by that point. He looked like he was on his last leg. In this one, I felt like Drew Brees is playing pretty well. I think they need more weapons. I think they could probably stand for another receiver. I don't love Jerry Cook as a tight end, but when it comes to like journeyman tight ends, that's about the best you're going to sign. It's better than like the Patriots signing Ben Watson. But I think the load management, this is what I kind of want to talk about with Brady. Do you need to bring in a guy that's going to play 4 or 5 or 6 weeks and give them a rest in the middle of the season? If you're the Saints, if you're the Patriots, is that the right answer? Maybe the Eagles with Carson Wentz. Do you need to give Carson Wentz some load management?
That's just not football.
Nobody wants to see it. But if you're a GM and your job is to win a Super Bowl, does that give you a better chance to win a Super Bowl?
Well, then you would think that guy that comes in for 4 or 6 games for you is the guy that can win it for you.
Do you? Do you think Teddy Bridgewater beats the Vikings today?
Not in that game, but maybe Bridgewater beats the Titans.
Well, neither. Obviously, now the Saints aren't going to the Super Bowl, but the Titans probably won't either. Even though I like my team, it's still a long shot. 6 seeds tend to not make it very often. My point is, in the regular season, when you're not playing,
if I had to pick one
quarterback
talent right now who looked like age has got to him between Breeze and Tom Brady, it'd be Tom Brady.
Of course, yeah, I totally agree with that. Again, we're talking about 2 more years too, so maybe Breeze looks like this or worse 2 years from now when he's had 2 more grueling years in the NFL. Yeah. But what I am saying is he looked like he benefited from breaking his thumb this year. He looked like he was the better quarterback because he got to sit out 5 or 6 weeks. And what I want to say is, if I'm a GM, I think I need to take note of that. It's not what anyone wants to see. I know nobody wants to go to a game, spend all that money, and you go and watch the backup quarterback play. But if you're 6-2, and you've got 3 or 4 games that should be easier than a lot of other games in the NFL, if you're going to play like bottom 10 teams in the NFL, why not?
It's not gonna. It's just. I get it. It's just not going to happen. Contracts would have to be rewritten for this to happen. You would have fans up in a roar. I mean, it's just not going to happen. I don't see it. Neil, I did not rage. I just gave up. And would it be worse than last time if the Titans beat the Chiefs? It'd be the AFC Championship.
Yeah, it would be
game.
worse, right?
So it'd be a lot worse than this.
What if it was more mistake late? But like, what if it was like just the worst game of football from both like Andy Reid making mistakes and like the most ridiculous fumbles and everything else? Like, how aggro would you go? And I would too. Don't get me wrong. If it goes the other way, I'm going to be upset when I'm on here. But it's still going to be one of those things that I'm like, yeah, those are the Titans. I think your expectations for the Chiefs are much higher than what my expectations for the Titans are. I'm just thrilled to be here.
I just want you to remember that you have been to a Super Bowl in your lifetime. I have not.
I have, and we come about as close to winning it as you get without doing it.
Okay, that's my point. At least you saw your team do it. I have yet to do it, so...
Definitely. Also, Rob says, so is Tannehill now the GOAT? He threw for 72 yards in this game. I would say no. Not yet. Great player. He's done great for the Titans, but it's also only been a 10-game span. We still need to see more before I'm ready to say he's the greatest of all time, because that's what that stands for. Another thing that bothers me, while we're talking about stuff that grinds my gears, when I'm watching, I forget who it was, I think it was ESPN, that put something out like, the 2 GOATs are eliminated. How do you have 2 greatest of all time? Isn't greatest of all time like one guy?
Well, it's because it's speculated.
But still, though, like... There can't be 2. By definition, there cannot be 2.
There's a lot of people that say Breeze, and there's a lot of people that say Tom Brady.
They can say it all they want, but the argument is my guy is better than your guy. You can't have 2 greatest of all time. Mathematically, you can't have 2 of the greatest. It's not of the greatest, it is the greatest.
What about Seagoats? Oh, greatest of all times.
Oh, man. Okay.
Neil says you finally got to give the Titans their props. Breeze lost that game, though. He is overrated. I don't know how you could say he's overrated.
I think that might be a Tom Brady fan ready to just poke the bear for the guy that now has the touchdown record for him.
Ian also goes off and says, looking forward to next year since the Steelers are out. He says Steelers at Tennessee.
Always historically a good matchup.
I hope we go to that game.
Yeah, that'll be fun. Yeah. I think it might be in Pittsburgh, so we might have to hit the road for that one. But
oh, well, then never mind.
Always historically a great game. The Titans and Steelers, Titans and Ravens, all those teams that play good defense and run the ball. I know the Steelers throw a little bit more now these days. It's always fun to watch them go smash on each other in the middle of the season. Couple more here. Ian says Minnesota is Super Bowl bound. He's still all in on that pick. And Charlie says, who dat? Nobody. Oh, man, the joke's coming in on the Saints. Look. It's tough. It's tough because if it was the other way around and the Vikings lost this game, we'd be talking about Kirk Cousins can't win in the clutch. Kirk Cousins can't. Do we lay a little bit of that to rest with this game?
Well, yeah,
because he finally won in the clutch.
This is an important game and he won it. So yeah, I think you got to put that.
And it wasn't even at noon. Oh wait, yes it was. Maybe he's just the noon. Maybe he's just like used to. He's got to be in rhythm. He's got to be feeling it at 12. He's like, that's when we play football. 3 o'clock, nope. 7, nope. Monday night, of course not. Maybe it just needs to be 12 o'clock on a Sunday to get the best out of Kirk Cousins.
Scott says Alvin Kamara has fallen off for the Saints. Do you believe that?
Well, that is the interesting thing. If you look at the Saints, they said we can't run on this team. They only ran the ball 16 times, unless you count a Drew Brees scramble. They ran the ball 16 times, and Alvin Kamara had 7 of those.
Yeah.
So are they on the Todd Gurley load management thing? Do they not want to turn him into Todd Gurley? Because he's not a big guy. I don't think they look at Alvin Kamara and say he can take the abuse that Todd Gurley did. They used him a lot last year. Was this them being too smart for their own good, where they said Alvin Kamara is a valuable player and we want to have him for years going forward, and instead of just using him, they said we need to protect him?
If it's not between the tackles, then it needs to be in screen passes. You got to get this guy the ball, plain and simple. He is your playmaker beyond Michael Thomas. You put the ball in Alvin Kamara's hand. I don't know if you can say he's fallen off, but if they're not utilizing him, then I'll agree that the whole team has fallen off on utilizing Alvin Kamara. I'll give you that one.
And
Scott.
you could definitely say not the same year he had last year. He didn't live up to it, but I don't think they just wanted to feature him. I mean, Latavius Murray, it seems like, even though they didn't run him a ton, they ran him almost as much as they ran Kamara. They wanted to get the power back involved, and they wanted to get the power back. Whether you like Latavius Murray or not, I don't think he's as talented as Alvin Kamara. At some point, you need to say, it's the playoffs. We need to get the ball in our playmakers' hands.
Right. Rob says Minnesota over San Fran, then they come to Green Bay in the final show at the North. Best division in football.
Second best division in football. The NFC West is the best division in football. 11-5 Seahawks, 8-8 Rams that didn't make it. I believe 8-8. They might have won the last. I don't remember. 9-7 or 8-8. I don't remember where they finished, but they just barely missed the playoffs and look good doing it. And then you get the 49ers. I'll give you credit though. The North is absolutely fantastic. Second best division in football, in my opinion.
Was going to be, but then they kind of fell off. Austin says if Minnesota and Seattle make the NFC Championship, it will be the first time a 5 seed and a 6 seed make it.
Yes, and the reason why is because every one of these teams that you see on the table right now, and I kind of want to make this point, just played a grueling game, a battle, a slugfest that they had to go and play down to the last minute. And then they're going to have to go and play a team that's had his feet on the couch, watched all of this, has been watching film for 2 weeks on them, and is going to be incredibly rested and prepared to go play against them.
Yeah.
At home is the most important thing. They get to do it at home. So the reason you always get 1 and 2 seeds going to the Super Bowl is because of things like this. They play one less game. They're going to be more rested. They're going to get to play at home. It's going to be, I think, probably pretty similar to a lot of years where you're going to see those teams that didn't have to go battle it out, didn't have to go to overtime, didn't have to go down to the last 30 seconds.
Didn't have to lose players.
Exactly. They didn't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
Might get some guys back. Got to prepare for it.
Yeah.
Going up fresh into this game. That's why you don't usually see those bottom tier seeds get in there. You have to just get so hot to go in and beat a team like that.
Charlie says Minnesota over San Francisco. San Francisco, are you high, bro? Talking to Rob. Rob says a little bit, but still. And Joseph, good to see you. He says Minnesota is capable of beating anyone.
Well, they beat the Saints.
And people keep selling them short.
Well, they beat the Saints. And the Saints, even though they lost to the 49ers at home as well, that was just as close of a game, right? I know it didn't go to overtime, but the 49ers had to come back and score in like 17 seconds or something stupid like that at the end of the game. I think the Vikings absolutely should be considered a threat. Even though I'd say the 49ers are the favorite, especially playing at home, especially rested, everything else, to say that Minnesota has no chance, I don't think is right. Because a lot of people were writing them off in this game. And I don't want to say that we did. We said it was going to be close. But everybody, pretty much under the sun, was saying, oh, look out for the Saints. And then the Minnesota came in and shocked them. I think they could have another performance like that again.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Damian, good to see you. It's a long one. He says, can you please explain to me why every time the Bears replace a coach, they always get someone who worked with Andy Reid? Doesn't anybody know that Andy Reid is the worst coach in football? Just saying, if we keep getting these coaches, we will never see Bears winning another Super Bowl. Wow.
Well, let me say this before I let you go into it. Just really quick. The one point I want to have is teams, if you look at it, have a tendency to steal from certain organizations. They fall in love with them, with those guys. The Ravens have forever taken a lot of Titans after they come off of the Titans. Everything else. Teams just fall in love with certain teams, or they have relationships with the guys there and they talk to them. So to say that the Bears always take from Kansas City, that's not a huge surprise. A lot of teams do that. Look at the Titans and the Patriots right now. The Titans love grabbing Patriots up.
Lovie Smith was not from the Andy Reid trade.
That's also true. But go ahead. Anything else you want to say to that?
No, I just said, how can you call him the worst coach ever when he's one of the most winningest coaches ever? He just
hadn't got to the promised land yet.
That's all it is. But he also took his team,
four NFC championships?
4 years in a row to the NFC championship game, 1-1. I mean, that...
Was it 3 or was it 4? Because I thought I saw something that said, oh no, Super Bowls that I saw for that stat for the Bills. The Bills have the record still at 4 straight Super Bowls because the Patriots lost.
That's 4 NFC championships.
Yeah,
that's huge, man. Worst? I don't know, man. And we got to remember, he comes also from the Mike Holmgren coaching tree, which is also part of the. Oh man, what's the coach from the 49ers that just passed away not too long ago? Came from it. I don't know if you can say that, man. I get if you don't like him, that's fine. But the worst, there's a lot of bad coaches out there, man. Austin says Seattle has been better this year on the road. Vikings can win, but not likely. So he has hopes for Seattle, but he's kind of doubting the Minnesota. I mean, where do you feel on those two? Going into the next week.
I like Minnesota upsetting the 49ers because I feel like they're playing better football. And maybe it's just because the Seahawks always play ugly.
Yes, Ian. Bill Walsh, thank you so much.
I think I like the 49ers getting upset by the Vikings just because it looked a lot better against the Saints this week. That doesn't necessarily mean the Seahawks can't do it on the road. I agree. They play well on the road, and they're going to have to, and they run the ball, kind of like I just said. I don't think Green Bay matches up against the run as well. They would rather play a team like the Saints that are going to throw more than they're going to run. They would rather play a team not like the Seahawks that are going to just try to pound this ball down their throat. It's all about matchups. I think both of those teams still have a chance to win, but I don't think either one could be called a favorite coming in playing a team on the road that has just been on a bye and has the better record going into it. But I think I'd take Vikings winning before I take the Seahawks winning.
Bill says that we need to have a contest predicting the winner and the score of the Ravens and Titans game. The winner gets 2 racks of Ken Chapman's baby back ribs or a brisket. That's my dad's smoking skills right there. Yeah, I think the winner would be excited about getting that.
Just put them in the mail.
just mail it to him.
And Jordan says the Minnesota Vikings.
You could deep freeze something with like dry ice and send them that way.
You could.
Yeah.
You could.
Not going to happen. Because they're not going to leave my house.
I was going to say.
If I get ribs and a brisket here, it's done. It's not moving anywhere.
Yeah, you're going to take some bones to the mailman. Be like, hey, ship this for me.
No, my dog gets those.
Oh, okay. Well, it was a nice try.
I'm that greedy, yeah.
Also, a couple more here. Jordan says the Minnesota Vikings are going to be Super Bowl champions, and Michael goes back and says his 49ers will be ready for this game. I think this is going to be game of the week next week. And the reason I say that is because the Vikings just played a heck of a game.
You're crazy. You know why?
Heck of a game.
Because I think the Titans and Ravens game is going to be the game of the week.
Do you? Well, I hope you're right. I hope that's actually, you know what? I hope it's a blowout. I hope the Titans just knock them out. Interesting fact, and I've said this already. The Ravens will have waited 20 days between playing football with their starters. When rest versus rust comes in, I mean, when you have a young quarterback, I don't know, I'm just looking for positives here, but 20 days is a long time to go without playing. We'll see what the Ravens look like when they come back from that. They're either going to be super rested and just wreck the Titans, or they're a little rusty and maybe some mistakes happen. The question is, can the Titans take advantage of that? No. Rob also says San Fran has a hellacious defensive front. Yes, but so did the Philadelphia Eagles. He said it scares him getting after Cousins early and often, and he can't perform. Yes, again, Cousins needs to be protected. He's not scrambling like Russell Wilson's going to scramble. He is not avoiding pressure at all. He might be one of the most stationary quarterbacks in the game right now. The key is going to be, can they lean on that offensive line and have them give him enough time to make something happen? That is going to be a massive matchup for next week. I absolutely agree with you there.
Damon does say, okay, Andy Reid isn't the worst, but he is a coach that's never won a Super Bowl. Yes.
Andy Reid, almost as good as someone like Hugh Jackson for the Browns, but not quite yet. When we're talking about worst coach ever.
Yeah. He's going to just join that giant list of coaches that have never won a Super Bowl. But he will be on that one list that only has a few that he can say he went to.
99 championship games and just didn't win a Super Bowl.
4 in a row NFC Championship games.
Austin also says Metcalf just had 160 yards and a touchdown. Solid rookie year overall for him. Yes, even though I won't call him Rookie of the Year or anything like that, I think you need to be incredibly impressed with what he's done.
Bill says no need to mail those ribs. He lives right down the street, and he's guaranteeing a win.
Guaranteeing the win. Okay, I like that. I like that, Bill.
Well, Bill, I think because you've said it, maybe you should say what the score is going to be. I want to know. Because if you know it, maybe you're a time traveler. Maybe that's what it is. Because I want to know. I want to know what the score is going to be.
Ian also says, as a Steelers fan, he thinks that Tennessee was the better team over the Steelers to make it further into the playoffs. And he also said, damn, that hurt. All I can say is, I think you're right.
Put your.
I think you're right. I'm still
You
celebrating.
literally did nothing but pick up 12-ounce curls.
I know, but without me, they couldn't have done it. Who cheered him on the whole way, Drew?
Jordan, good to see you, man. He says, do we think that the Lions should draft a quarterback and with their pick in this year's draft?
I do not.
No.
I think Matt Stafford can still do it.
Pick, no.
Maybe, if you want to take a shot later on, I'm
maybe
okay.
Maybe they're third, fourth. Yeah, okay, all right.
You take a shot later in the draft? Yeah, I'm never against that. Never. Unless you're saying this is going to be our replacement, then I am against it. But I think Matt Stafford was playing all right before they shut him down. He was playing with a broken back broken bone in his back all season long, and then they got to the point where they're out of it, and they're like, all right, thanks, Matt Stafford. We'll see you next year when it actually matters a little bit more. So, no, I still think Matt Stafford's the way to go.
Austin says the Ravens are dumb for sitting them that long. He's saying that the rust will have them lose because they've taken that much rest. Especially
young quarterback. I like it a lot less. If this was Tom Brady or Drew Brees, I'd be like, they'll be fine, right? I mean, how often does Tom Brady... they've played for so long that you're like, it's like riding a bike. But when you're talking about a second-year quarterback playing in his second playoff game, coming off a 20-day rest, that's a long time. And it's not just him. It's guys like Mark Ingram. It's their offensive tackles that they rested against the Steelers. That's a long time to go. I think they should have played their starters against the Steelers, and we talked about this last time. They should have played their starters so that you're coming off of 13 days or 14 days instead of 20.
Yeah, the only thing...
It'll feel like a bye week at that point.
I get it, but the only thing I can really say about that is when you're facing a division rival, it's going to be a tough, hard-fought game, a lot of dirty shots because you all have history with each other. I mean, it makes sense, but... It's a decision that he made. Now they got to live with it, and let's see what happens. I think the Ravens are going to come out firing. I don't think they're going to be at all looking dull going against the Titans. I think it's going to take everything the Titans have to beat the Ravens. But I don't think that the Titans are anything short of not being able to do that. Charlie says, "Okay, guys, I have respect for all that, but the Vikings don't have a chance." He said Jimmy G and the gang are going to be ready.
Rest versus rust. You never know how a team's going to respond. Never. It doesn't seem to matter. Unless it's the Patriots that are on a bye every year and they seem to always perform. Most teams, when you come off of that first round bye, are either amazing or they look just flat. And if they come out flat against a Vikings team that's now played really well against a great opponent on the road, I think they could wind up getting shocked in this one. I like the fact that they're going to run a little bit more than the Saints did. I like the fact that Kyle Shanahan's calling some of the plays. Even though I like and respect the Saints head coach and Sean Payton, I still think that Kyle Shanahan is more dynamic and has done a lot more with a lot less. I think this is going to be... I don't want to say a proving year for Kyle Shanahan, but if they do drop this one, we need to talk about what could have been, because I still think this roster, despite all its success, is not as good as someone like the Saints or someone even like the Vikings. I think on paper, you would rather have the Vikings team. It's just the 49ers have the better scheme, they have the better coaching, and they seem like they have the better attitude this year. And that's been a big difference.
Andrew, good to see you, man. He says he's got San Fran, Seattle, Kansas City, and Baltimore for his picks for next week.
My heart.
But then again, in the preseason, he said he picked the Pats and the Saints in the Super Bowl.
Well, old dogs are out.
They're out.
This will be the first time somebody not named Brady, Flacco, Roethlisberger, or Manning in 20 years is going to the AFC Championship.
It's crazy.
Those are the only four guys past 20 years. And Flacco went once, so he's barely on the list. It's going to be wild. I can't wait for it. Well, Mahomes was on there once, too, last season. But, sorry, I'm saying that should have been Super Bowl, not championship. Amazing stat. Absolutely amazing stat. It's going to be... We're in uncharted territory now, boys. I don't know who's going to win. Normally, you just slap the Patriots button and you say, well, they got it, right? They're going to be fine. You ready to talk about that game? We get a couple more comments. What you want to do?
Oh, man, we're getting comments like crazy. It's great. Damon says Vikings and Packers have to lose next week. He swears that they win. Either of them make the Super Bowl. He's done with football officially.
Well, they'll have one more before the Super Bowl.
The Cheese Balls win. Damon, you don't mean that. You don't mean that. That means that you wouldn't want to come and talk sports with us, and we know that that's not on your agenda. You constantly want this to happen. So even if for some reason that happens, I think you're still going to be here.
You'll just pull a Drew. You'll sit down. You'll have a nice glass of whiskey. And you'll say,
single barrel Jack Daniels.
And you'll say, you know what? I was disappointed this year, but that's why we're going to play football next year.
I was disappointed.
Yeah.
My horse was rasp. My voice was rasp. I'm done trying to talk now.
You get what I'm trying to say. Jordan, ready to shift gears a little bit and talk college football. We won't go too far into it. He says, who do we think will win the quarterback battle for Michigan State next year? I'll be honest with you, I don't know. At this point, we have an entire offseason. They're going to have a bunch of spring games, everything else. We're also talking about Michigan State that needs to have another draft class to level up to compete with some of the best teams in the Big Ten. I don't know who's going to win that off the top of my head right now.
Bill, he gave it out. He said the Ravens 34, Titans 17. I'm writing it down. Right now, Bill Wilson.
Et tu, Brute. Et tu.
Ravens 34.
Another one here. Andrew James.
Titans,
says,
not
good
even.
Win. Good
not
win,
even,
Jake.
Not even a chance at 17.
Thank you, Andrew. And like I said, we've had a lot we haven't. I'm saying I've seen a lot of salty Patriots fans on the internet, and it's easy to be when you look at how everyone's kind of like laughing because your team lost. I do appreciate the civility, and I do appreciate it. That's the attitude of a champion. Good win. Good game. We've won 6 of them. I can admit when another team played well against my team. Thank you, Andrew. Well played by the Patriots, too, because, man, I'll tell you, I thought we were going to lose that game the whole time.
Just now, if the rest of your, Titans fans would be the same way, act like you won a football game before.
Well, that won't happen. So, prepare yourself.
Ian says he's got Tennessee winning that game 28-27 against Baltimore.
It would be fantastic.
And Andrew says he's got a plus 65 points in the Kansas City and Houston game. It's going to be that crazy scoring?
Say that again. What was the score?
Plus 65.
Plus 65? No. It's tough to bet on the playoff games because they usually let the players play. They're not going to call as many holding and pass interference calls. And just like this week, you're going to see lower scoring games than everybody kind of anticipates. Except for the Saints, and that took overtime. Most of these games barely got to 20 points. So I think 65 is a little ambitious. Even though I like both those teams and the way they play offense, I think 65 is a little ambitious for both of them to get there.
Charlie says this is great. He loves how it's some different teams going into later into the playoffs. I'm right there with you, man. You still have some of the older names into it, but I agree, man. This is exciting. I think it's a great turning. I think it's a great turning point for the NFL. I think this is exactly what they wanted. They wanted close games and young names.
Yes. And Austin says, does this make Wilson and Rodgers the old men of the playoffs this year? Rodgers definitely, because he's the oldest guy left, I think. And then you look at Kirk Cousins, somewhere around 30. I think he's 31. Tannehill in that neighborhood. Russell Wilson in that neighborhood. But you definitely have some young guns, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew wants you to know, never salty, but statistically, it's theirs when Tom Brady comes back.
What do you mean when he comes back? Like when he gets 20 years younger magically?
No, when he comes back next year, then he's going to win another Super Bowl because it's always like a year.
Win one, lose one. Win one, lose one. But this is also the first year that either Alabama or the Patriots didn't win in their respective leagues. Usually they kind of like rotate off and on.
God.
I know. Are we out of the dark times? Do we finally get through the tunnel? You
Cheers,
might be
Chris.
right, and I'm kind of with you, not saying they're going to win, but I think everybody who's saying that the Patriots are dead and their dynasty is over are definitely speaking prematurely. Anyone who thinks Tom Brady isn't coming back is wrong. Did you see Tom Brady and Robert Kraft basically make out before the game started? Robert Kraft is not letting Tom Brady go. It's not going to happen. They stopped before the game.
Do you think that's their only time they made out?
Looked into their eyes and literally had like a minute worth of talk.
Are you going to kiss me?
No, but that's probably what they were saying.
Wow.
It was definitely, all jokes aside, when you look at Brady and Kraft's relationship, I think if Belichick said, I want Tom Brady out of here, they would let Belichick go before Brady did. I think Robert Kraft is just enamored with Tom Brady. He will play as long as Tom Brady wants to play in a Patriot uniform. Period. And everyone's saying that he's done in New England. That will only be the case if he thinks he has a better chance of winning and wants to leave.
I don't see it, man. I don't see it. I just don't.
Him leaving, or
no,
or them bringing him back.
Them letting Belichick walk out of there.
Well, I don't think either one of those things happened. But I'm saying if it came down to it, if somebody's got to go, I think Belichick gets the axe before Brady does. As crazy as that is.
They're not firing any of those guys.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be kumbaya. They'll figure it out, and the Patriots will be back next year and just as much of a threat. And we'll be talking about they're not playing good football, but they're 13-3 because the Bills and the Jets and the Dolphins can't beat them.
That's the truth. Charlie, thank you so much, man. It only makes it better when you're here. Neil says, Logan Ryan picked it and went in for a touchdown, and I knew we still had a chance.
Yeah, he should have went down, because if he goes down, the Titans kneel, the game is over. Instead, he gave him a chance to run a trick play.
He says he can bet you almost soiled yourself.
What? Meaning like happy? No, I was like, go down, and then he ran into the end zone. I was like, I like Logan Ryan, but that was a little greedy. And he should have had the interception at halftime. He should have had a pick six.
Yeah,
he was like running with the ball beforehand and just dropped it. I'll say this about the Patriots, and since we're talking about that game, this has been the first time that I can remember, or maybe last year you could argue the same, but this has been the first time that I can remember that you don't have to play a perfect game to beat the Patriots, because the Titans were chock full of mistakes in that one. They had fumbles coming off of Tannehill, both from a strip sack and coming off of a handoff where like he kind of fumbled the shotgun snap. That killed drives. They had multiple other plays where they let interceptions go through their hands, or they let something happen, or they made a boneheaded play like the illegal procedure. Instead of taking a timeout, they didn't get set. The Titans made a number of mistakes in this game and still had enough to beat the Patriots.
Yeah.
The reason I would kind of give some credence to saying the Patriots aren't as good as they were and the dynasty might be over is because that used to never happen.
Yeah.
You used to have to be perfect to beat this team. Instead, this year, Titans make a bunch of mistakes and still find a way to win it.
Well, you're right, but you can look at last year in the AFC Championship game, if 1-for-1 penalty, the Patriots lose.
And that's kind of what I'm saying. You almost had to play a perfect game against the Patriots. You can't make a lot of mistakes, especially in the second half.
But then again, it comes down to the exact same thing: is you really. I get that the touchdown happened, but really, you guys beat them by 1 point.
Yes. Yeah.
This team is still legitimately good. Regardless if we can sit there and say their division sucks, regardless if we can sit there and say Tom Brady's washed up, Belichick can make a defense. And whatever happens on the opposite side of the ball, it seems like this team, regardless if they win or lose, is constantly in every battle almost.
More than that, last season when the Titans beat the Patriots in the regular season, they did it by putting pressure on Tom Brady. They said, we need to take him off the spot, because that's almost always been the formula, right? You hit Tom Brady, you frustrate him early, and then get him off of his rhythm. This game, they didn't say that. They said Tom Brady is the weak link. We're going to rush 3 guys and we're going to drop 8. And we're going to say, we don't trust that you can beat us. We don't trust that you and the weapons are going to be able to get something done. Because when you have as long as Tom Brady had to throw and still struggled to succeed, I think you have a bigger problem than the Patriots have had in years past. This isn't like we need to retool or we need to do a better job blocking or we did something wrong. This, to me, it's not even the weapons. This is about Tom Brady does not have the arm to defeat teams down the field anymore. You need to do creative stuff.
With the legs.
West Coast wide. Yes.
Even if you don't have a bomb in your arsenal, if you can move yourself out of the pocket and create time for your receivers to get open, then it changes things.
Cheers to you, Chris. Thank you.
He has neither of those. Andrew says hot take. He says hot take is Bill leaves before Josh McDaniels or Tom Brady.
Could you see them moving Josh McDaniels up to the head coach because Belichick says it's time to bring in a new quarterback? And I know that's going to happen here soon. But do you think Bill Belichick's going to have that conversation with Robert Kraft shortly? Like, hey, look, if we had a halfway decent quarterback, we'd beat the Titans in this game. Because Dean Pease was not interested in rushing him at all. They were sending 3 guys. And there was like 2 D tackles in Jarrell Casey and Jeffrey Simmons that were rushing a lot. And then they said Harold Landry, one of your defensive ends. Everyone else dropped. Like, that was 50% of the plays they ran. The other 50%, they sent 4 guys and didn't blitz anybody. They were not trying to get after Tom Brady at all.
Now, historically, Dean Pease doesn't really blitz a whole lot.
Oh, he does. He does with the safeties. He runs a bunch of creative stuff. He's almost like Dick LeBeau, where he runs a bunch of creative blitzes with his linebackers in Baltimore. In Tennessee, it's been more with the secondary because those are the guys they do. He plays an aggressive style of defense. He runs a multiple front defense that plays aggressively. So I don't necessarily agree with that. But what I will say is to see him change the game plan like this after last year and you had the success by blitzing Tom Brady and sending guys from every direction, it was interesting. It really, really was interesting. The fact that they said Tom Brady is the weak link here, to me, was something that we haven't seen a team say in maybe NFL history. Maybe since like 2003 or 2002, whenever he came in. Whatever it was. Maybe
Brian, good to see you, man. We're glad you're here. We're glad you can make it. He says Brady the Titans. And Andrew says...
Everyone's saying that. Andrew we take every Patriot.
Andrew says, whoa. Did you see those throws Tom Brady threw it 60 yards in the end zone at the end of the half.
He had like a 55-yard bomb, and did you see how high he had to put it for it to get there? It was an egg. It was an egg. And everything else I saw when he was throwing to Edelman on the sideline that everyone was saying he was accurate with it, semi-accurate with it. He put it where mostly only his guy could get. He did miss some throws, but every time you watched it was a lollipop. There was arc on it. He didn't whistle the ball in anywhere, really, except like 5 yards away from the line of scrimmage. The arm strength is leaving him, and he's 42, okay? It's going to happen sooner or later. The arm strength is leaving him, I think. And we haven't seen it all year. They have been almost a West Coast team throwing short and doing stuff creatively to get the ball. Part of it's the receivers. I agree with that. He did throw one bomb where he had, I think it was Sanu that was just like wide open down the field. But even that was like, he threw it, it was arcing for 30 yards. Like, it was a rainbow. When you got arm strength, you just whistle that in there. The guy catches it and then scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's coming. Prepare yourself. You're now in the Peyton Manning stage when he was in Denver, where maybe you could win a Super Bowl with this guy, but you're probably not winning because he's just that much better than everyone. You're going to get a mistake-free guy that's going to do some creative stuff in short range, and then it's on the defense. I think the parallels between him and Peyton Manning right now, and everyone's compared them forever, are now almost perfectly, again, aligned, where Peyton Manning was in Denver and needed a defense to really carry him to a Super Bowl. I think Tom Brady's almost to the point where he needs this defense to carry him. I just don't see the situation where they bring in a couple weapons and we're back to business where he's throwing the ball 40 yards down the field if he needs to. I'm going to read a couple more of these comments unless you got something to say. I see you looking up some stats or something.
Yeah, I'm looking something up.
Go ahead.
No, I'm not done looking it up.
Okay, well, I'll keep going.
I don't want to take anything away. I was going to let you go ahead and go into the Titans and Patriots. Even though we've been talking.
I think I've been going into it, but yeah,
we talked about every single game already. One we have really kind of ignored is that Bills and Texans game. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, we could talk about Bills and Texans, or we could talk about the Titans. Yeah, we can talk about the Bills and Texans. I was incredibly disappointed in both of these teams. It was sloppy play from both of them. I think Houston, I'm not going to lie, when I picked them and then they went down 60-0, I was like, I'm about to be embarrassed when I come back on here on Sunday and be like, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, guys. Bad stuff just happened. I don't know. I really don't. When you talk about Roby for the Texans, just dropping 2 of those easy interceptions against Josh Allen, and then Josh Allen just making mistake after mistake after mistake, throwing the ball, the lateral that didn't work, taking 2 bad sacks at the end of the game. Then you got Sean McDermott making a mistake, going for it on 4th and 27 when you have 3 timeouts, and the other team's offense basically hasn't done anything. And then Bill O'Brien going for it instead. I mean, I understand the going for it. I just think it's the wrong approach when the team that you're playing against at the end of the game has not had any offense in the second half. You kick a field goal, they need to score a touchdown to beat you. Why would you not do that? It's like a 50-yard field goal. Do you not trust Kai Fairbairn? Because he's been fine. I think he would hit that kick, and then we'd be talking about the Bills having to score a touchdown against you when they've done nothing since the first half. It was just a game chock full of mistakes for me. I think it was terrible. Maybe, I don't know. I don't want to sound too biased because I am a Titans fan. Houston did enough to get the win. Is that the nicest thing I can say about this? They did enough to get the win.
Yeah, I think me and you had a conversation about this game prior or after the game happened, and you were literally like, these are the 2 teams that are least prepared to go in to the playoffs and to have a chance to win the Super Bowl. And I agree with you.
They looked like it in this game.
They did.
But I think Houston, of the 2, is probably the one that can shake it off.
I think so, too, because of the play of Deshaun Watson. And I know that you sat there and didn't like the way that he commented after the game. But
yeah.
And there is one thing, and I've said this a long time about him, and I've said this way before anyone started bringing it up, and I'm not saying I'm the first one to do it, but this guy is a winner. This guy does know how to win games, and that's when it comes in, and that's when it's important when a game is this close against the Bills, you have a playmaker like Deshaun Watson.
Good to see you, Brian. Thanks for joining us. Hope you can take cover at work. All right, well, I'm 3,000 miles behind, just like always.
But that being said, I'm stoked that you guys beat the Patriots because now I get the Texans. Not that it's going to be an easy game, but I'd rather face the Texans than the Patriots at this point.
100%. You almost always do.
100%.
Regardless of how bad the Patriots look ever, like they struggle with they lost to Miami
Patriots
and struggle with the Bills, you're like, they're going to be in this game.
Patriots,
you just know they're going to be in this game.
Patriots play the Chiefs well.
Absolutely.
Texans, even though they won this year, historically don't play us that well.
Absolutely. Brian saying Brady to the Titans. I know you and everybody else, man. It's not going to happen. The only way Ryan Tannehill leaves Nashville is in a hearse. They will franchise him before they let him go. Like, the only way he's not here is if he retires or dies. He's not leaving Nashville. When you look at this year, they will franchise this guy before they let him walk in free agency. And they also have, I believe, because we're talking about a new CBA coming up, that they're going to have a transition tag, which is like a franchise tag, but also a lot cheaper. And it only comes around in the years where you're negotiating a new contract with the CBA. A lot of weird and intricate rules with those, but the Titans are not going to let Ryan Tannehill go. Just like Derrick Henry. I think they'll keep those two guys here, and then whatever else happens, guys like Jack Conklin, Logan Ryan, they're going to keep the two offensive powerhouses that have been the reason they've had this success this year. And they're going to pay them. Yeah, here comes the dump truck full of money.
Neil says if you can take a hit like that Watson did, you can get out of a jam. He says if he wants it, it's because 99% of the quarterbacks go down there. He loves the fact that he gloated. That was a great play by him at the end there.
What's that?
Deshaun Watson.
It was a great job escaping pressure.
Yeah.
The pass was not anything special. You threw it to a guy literally standing by himself out there. And, hey, props to you for finding the guy open. But to say, somebody had to be great, I had to make a play, you made half of that play. The running back, it was like the third-string running back. It wasn't even Duke Johnson. He was the guy that did the other part where he ran the ball 40 yards and dodged everybody down the field. So, again, I would like to see a little humility there. But, hey, I mean, at the end of the day, got the job done. It's going to take more than just that to beat Kansas City next week. I hope the Houston Texans look a little bit better because, I'll be honest with you, Drew, just like you said you would rather play, or you're thanking the Titans for beating the Patriots and you'd rather play Houston, I would rather play Houston in the AFC Championship if my team gets through than I would play the Chiefs. So, go Houston next week. No, I'm just kidding, man. I mean, like I said, you got to beat the best to be the best. But this is one of those situations that I think Houston, if they show up and if they play better like we've seen them do at times, this could be a great game. This could be two heavyweights putting up a lot of points against each other. Or they play like this week and the Kansas City's going to come in and just knock their teeth out. I really think Houston's got to play better next week or we're going to see another bounce out. And
remember, it's just a bye week for Kansas City. This squeak is going to drive me nuts.
Is it you or is it me?
Dude. It just
I don't know.
It just stops on its own. It's
perfect.
Like we talked about it, so it's no longer going to be there. Damien, he's saying that he asked if Stafford will go to the Buccaneers and how long will Stafford play for. I don't think he's going to leave a Lions uniform. I think if he
not yet anyway.
If he's going to leave a Lions uniform, he's going to be close to 40, and I doubt the Buccaneers at that point will be looking for a quarterback at 40 years old. Be my guess.
Andrew also says Josh Allen is young. He lost the game for the Bills. Bottom line, yes, but I don't think it was just him because I think even though Devin Singletary was basically the only guy stepping up, he was also the only guy with a receiving touchdown. Your quarterback was the only guy with a receiving touchdown. They still need more weapons. We've been saying it, right?
Yeah.
We've been saying they need more weapons. I think that shows it to you. More on top of that, Josh Allen had some good plays with his legs. He had 92 yards rushing, I believe, and a receiving touchdown. He threw for 264. It wasn't his best performance. He made a bunch of mistakes at the end, like taking the sacks I talked about, like the lateral. That was like the most ill-advised thing I've ever seen in my life.
Sorry.
But his coach going for it on 4th and 27 when you could punt, bury the Texans, and have 3 timeouts when you have the defense like the Bills have, inexcusable. Sean McDermott is just as culpable as Josh Allen is. The difference is you're the head coach. You're not the 23-year-old starter.
True. Andrew says he's been looking for the squeaking thing in his garage.
Yeah, I think it's one of our chairs, but I don't know. It just stopped. So don't move. Don't breathe.
Dude, I'm going to pass out. Neil said the Kansas City Chiefs are going to beat the Texans by 34-31. High-scoring game, shoot right at that 65.
The other thing he said that I agree with, J.J. Watt was a beast. We just said beforehand we don't know how effective he's going to be in this game, but he blew up enough plays in this. I was like, there's a reason they wanted him back.
And he's not healthy.
Exactly.
He's not healthy.
He still just blew up Cody Ford a couple times. And I know Cody Ford's a young player, but still, J.J. Watt coming off a pectoral injury just dominated a right tackle that's had a pretty good year.
I mean, maybe
he blew up enough plays that I think he was the difference.
And he was using that arm. I was going to say maybe you don't really have to use so much strength in that arm, but every time you watch him, his arms were extended, and that's where that pec is going to be coming in use. Yeah, he's a beast, man. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, and Andrew says, honestly, he was upset that Knox wasn't just looking for the lateral from Josh Allen. He says it's an extended option. They're a semi-RPO team. Sure, but you got to, tell them that's going to happen before the play. You can't be mad that a guy watching his quarterback get tackled and the play about to be over should be expecting him to just be like, oh, here's the ball, by the way. You just don't do it because the risk doesn't usually match the reward. I understand Josh Allen was trying to make something happen, but this is something that experienced quarterbacks know in the NFL. You can't try to make too much happen and force something or you get a mistake. I say credit to Knox, who is also a rookie, for batting the ball out of bounds, avoiding a penalty, and also avoiding a turnover. It was a smart play, especially to bat it backwards.
Austin says the Bills are on the cusp. Allen will get better with age, but he definitely needs weapons.
He needs weapons, and he needs to make fewer boneheaded plays. He made some passes. I was like, that was pretty nice, and he has all year long where he has some throws where you're like, that was pretty well executed, and then he has those plays where you're like, man, what was he thinking? And we saw that at the end of the game.
I felt like there was more of those plays.
I feel like it was pretty on par. Where it's like maybe a couple more, but I feel like it was pretty close to a regular Bills game.
The pressure got to him, and that's your whole thing.
And he was playing a good enough team to punish you for it.
And that's your whole thing about young quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. This is a lesson learned. Time to move on. But
let's see him next year.
But you saw him sit on that bench.
Yes.
He was down, which he should have been.
Yes.
Does this team rally around him next year?
Yes.
And is this another double-digit win team?
Well, let me ask you this: you were the one calling for his head. I'm going to answer your question with another question.
Yeah.
Was this the game, the nightmare kind of scenario that you saw that you're like, man, maybe we consider going another direction?
I just said if it happens, but no, it didn't happen. He didn't throw multiple picks. This wasn't a blowout by any means. So I think he's safe. I still think that the Bills are going to draft another quarterback. I really honestly do think that. I think they look at what he does when he runs for 92 yards in a game. You're like, you're going to go out there and get hurt. We need someone to back you up if you can't make it. No, he did not do what I said could happen, would be a 3-pick game, and it looks just abysmal, and the Texans win 34-3. I mean, that's not what happened. It's just, if it did, then I would be like, yes, absolutely. But no, that did not happen. So my question to you still stands. Does this team rally around Josh Allen? Is this a double-digit win team next year?
Could be. But the NFL is funky. The offensive line could play worse. The defense could play a little bit worse. And then everything goes out the window. They need both of those units to play amazingly well, even with Josh Allen. Even if they add the weapons that I say they need to, because I don't think he's a good enough passer right now to win with the arm. We need to see a little bit of progression from Josh Allen, and we also need to see the defense and offensive line play just as well as they did this year. Tall order. It's tough getting back to the playoffs. It just is.
Ian says, is it time for the Bills to take over the AFC East from New England?
No, I mean I think the defense for the New England is going to keep them in those games.
It's
I hear
my
it.
chair.
I know it's back.
It's my chair.
I hear it. Ignore it. I'm going to keep going. It's still the Patriots' division to lose.
Is it weird that the squeaky noise makes me have to pee more?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That is kind of weird.
That is weird.
But I still think this is the Patriots' division to lose. I think as long as the Bills are in it, and play defense the way they are, they'll be in the division. They'll play well. But they also had a pretty easy schedule. Both of these teams did. They played the NFC East. Even the rest of their matchups, teams like the Steelers did not play as well this year. I think when you look at it, the Bills will be back, but it's going to be one of those situations where next year is only going to get harder. You're going to play tougher teams more than likely. You're going to play a different division in the NFC. You're going to play a tougher schedule. You're going to have, just differences, more injuries. It's going to be one of those situations that even though I like where they're at, nothing's a guarantee. Nothing's promised. This team could go from 11 wins right now to 7 next season because things just didn't go their way.
No.
Especially like beating Tennessee because they started Mariota instead of Tannehill. That doesn't always happen. A couple more of these comments here that were pretty good, and then we'll kind of round out our talk on a couple of these games here. I just had one that was good. Damian said Patriots are regretting the Antonio Brown and Gronk leaving. Interesting fact. Every team that tried to bring Antonio Brown in is now eliminated. Patriots, Saints that brought him in for a workout, Buffalo Bills that were interested in the trade beforehand, Raiders. Anyone who touched Antonio Brown has been cursed and is now out of the playoffs. Coincidence, Drew? I don't think so. It is a coincidence, but still.
Well, teams that are in the playoffs are more complete teams. Well, the Bills did want. The Bills and the Patriots, I guess they did. I don't know. I mean, man, if if AB just would have kept his mouth shut, could you imagine what he would have done with the Raiders?
Relax, man. I don't even think it's shut your mouth. I think it's just relax, dude. Like, chill out. Chill out. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Antonio Brown.
But he could be antsy. He could be like wanting more, but like, shut your mouth. Don't get on social media.
Well, I'm just going the other direction. Be like, dude, just relax. Just play football. You're good at it. All right? Just play football.
They need to legalize weed so he can relax. Because obviously he is not smoking.
Get on
anything.
that CBD oil or something. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
Ian
for Antonio
says
Brown.
Burrow to Cincinnati and Dalton to Tampa Bay.
Maybe, but I don't know. I think they're going to re-sign Jameis Winston because they're going to
Winston.
feel like the devil we know is better than the devil we don't.
Andy Dalton's way better than Jameis. I'm sorry.
But they're going to think that the devil we know and we have worked with is better than bringing in a new quarterback. I think you're right. They're keeping Jameis Winston. And even if that's the wrong call, he's not going anywhere. Yeah, I think you're right.
A new 30 for 30.
Yes, a new 30 for 30. What if I told you a quarterback could be good and bad at the same time? This is the Jameis Winston story.
Andrew says the biggest problem with AB is them not knowing what the league is going to do.
Now, yes, but I mean, we're talking about beginning of the season more than the end.
I mean, there's a reason the Saints brought him in, and they're doing their due diligence. It's if he can keep his mouth shut and talk to him and sit there and go, hey, this is what's going on. Are you worth bringing in for next year? I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
I definitely agree there. It really is. Jordan says Joe Burrow to the Lions. He won't get that far. The only way that happens is if the Lions give everything up and trade for the Cincinnati Bengals because Andy Dalton's out of a contract now. Nobody's talking about that. It doesn't technically expire till March 1st, but as soon as that happens, he's not going to be a Cincinnati Bengal. They're not going to re-sign him. I think they made that pretty clear by benching him. They're drafting Joe Burrow. There has not been more of a slam dunk first overall pick, I think, since I've started watching football. Just to the point where there is no controversy. Nobody's talking about you're taking Tua. Nobody's talking about you're taking Chase Young or Justin Herbert or Jake Eason or Jake Fromm. It's Joe Burrow, man. He's had such a just dominant season in college football. You're going to say, man, I hope he can do that again in the pros.
Well, Jordan's out there. He's throwing quarterbacks around. It's going to be a shakeup in Jordan's world. He says Joe Burrow to the Buccaneers.
Well, he also asked if he was going to the Lions. Again,
I know.
All those teams too far down. Lions are 5th. Buccaneers are like 16th or something like that.
They trade their quarterback up, Stafford, Winston, and then they trade him into Cincinnati and take the number 1 pick.
But if you're Cincinnati, are you going to give up a 5-year super cheap contract you're going to get with a rookie quarterback to bring in Matt Stafford, who signed one of those massive contracts for a quarterback? Even though now it's not the highest one. They do, but again, you're going to get a super cheap asset still in a quarterback because they have the money now. What about 3 years from now? They may not. You're going to think that I'm improving the roster and I'm going to want to pay some people, right? You're going to think I'm going to want to bring in some free agents. You want that cheap quarterback contract. I think Joe Burrow is better than even the Matt Stafford or someone like Jameis Winston. Having a guy like that on the super cheap contract you're going to get for 4 to 5 if you take the option and pay him $20 million. It'll probably be like 24 by then, 25 because it always goes up. You're better off having the rookie. You're just better. It's the best deal in sports.
Or he turns out to be a Jamarcus Russell or Ryan Leaf.
Well, then you figured it out, and you're bad, and you're going to get another chance to take another one of these guys. And you just keep doing it, and you keep doing it, and you keep doing it until one of these guys is good.
Charlie says, as a resident of Vegas, he says that the new stadium, he doesn't care about the Raiders. Maybe they can sign Winston. I don't think he's going to be free, man. Bill says, you look down the street to see if there was smoke coming from my parents' house. See if the smoker was up and running, man. It's not. It's because he's got... You don't want him to smoke him for 7 days, do you?
Yeah, isn't it like 2 that's usually the best? You do it for like 48 hours? And that's usually like good enough. Maybe 72 at the most.
Ribs? Maybe like 4 to 5,
You
6
have it on
hours?
like 106 degrees or something and smoke it for 7 days.
Slowly get it.
Ian says Burrow, Mayfield, and Jackson in the NFC or in the AFC North is what he meant to say. Holy crap, except for Baker. Okay, well, you had to get that dig in there. Except for the Baker. But here's the thing. Baker might be better with better management and better coaching next season. Again, we've seen one great year. We've seen one bad year. Guys have bad years. You add a different player and a different coach to this team, Baker Mayfield could be all the way back.
Yeah.
All right, here's another one. Austin says if no one wants Andy Dalton, keep him as a backup and let him mentor Joe Burrow. Or if Cincinnati is that far out from the playoffs, let him sit for a year like the Mahomes-Alex Smith situation. Here's the thing, though. Andy Dalton's not an idiot. He knows that's what you're doing.
Someone's going to want Andy Dalton.
And the other thing is he's not an idiot. He knows that, like, when you bench me to try Ryan Finley out, you're not really keen on me being your starter anymore.
Austin, let's think about the organization that Andy Dalton's literally been playing over and over for a few years now, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. And we all kind of know where that organization is. Andy Dalton, in my opinion, still, if you put the right things around him, could be a top 10 quarterback in this league. And that is not exaggeration. If you put him with someone like the Bills or even the Patriots or the Eagles, and he plays with those teams, you're talking again about another playoff team with these things around him. Obviously, none of these teams are looking for quarterbacks, but that's where you got to look at, where it's a team that's right on the cusp. Maybe, I mean, what if Ben Roethlisberger
What if the
retires?
Bills signed him next week?
What if Ben Roethlisberger retires and they bring in Andy Dalton?
They'll need weapons, but beyond that, yeah.
I mean,
but they got the defense. They have the offensive line. They need weapons. They need receivers.
But he's used to playing with no weapons.
Well, yeah, I know, and he's made the most of it. But again, he's used to playing with them, puts up some decent numbers, and then they don't win a lot of games. I'm saying they need some weapons still for that to succeed.
Restroom break.
But I wouldn't mind it. The thing I'm going to talk about here with Andy Dalton is he's going to go somewhere and be a bridge quarterback. There's going to be one of these teams that thinks, like Miami, maybe they don't want to pay Fitzpatrick, they'd rather Andy Dalton, or maybe they move on to one of these other groups, maybe even someone like the Chargers that move on for Phillip Rivers, and they want to bring in a quarterback to be sure about it before the draft. He's going to sign with them, and then he's going to play with them until that rookie quarterback is ready to go. And the best example of that, I think, might be the Chargers if they don't keep Phillip Rivers. But then you've got Phillip Rivers on the market. So there are going to be a ton, for the first time maybe ever in NFL history, a ton of quarterbacks in free agency that actually have some value to teams as starters. Usually a guy like that does not get it. And forever, it's always been this league does not have starting caliber quarterbacks in free agency. So if you've got a guy, you hang on to him. You're going to have Andy Dalton. You might have Tom Brady. You might have Phillip Rivers. You might have Jameis Winston. You'll probably have Marcus Mariota to go into a bunch of these teams that aren't really looking for it. For the first time, you're going to have all these teams not need to sign one of these guys. So I think Andy Dalton is likely to be somebody signed. Maybe Phillip Rivers, but if you look at the year he had a lot of turnovers. This is going to be an incredibly interesting offseason to see what happens with all these quarterbacks. That's my biggest point here. It's going to be incredibly interesting, and until it shakes out, it could go anyway. We could have Andy Dalton start. We have Andy Dalton wind up being a backup, and guys like Mariota just wind up on a team that nobody's talking about. Like he could be like Detroit's second string or third string quarterback. It's going to be amazing. That's all I can say. A couple more here. Ian says, as a Steelers fan, he would take Andy Dalton as a gap to the new franchise quarterback and make sure that that new quarterback is ready in the next 2 to 3 years. Yeah, I think that would be good, but I don't think the Steelers are ready to give up on Big Ben. I think they're in their mind, they're like, we need a weapon or two. We like Juju. Maybe we like James Conner as our running back, but we're maybe not quite there yet. If we bring in another receiver outside of James Washington and get another talented guy, with the defense, with the way the offensive line is played, they're going to say, with Roethlisberger, we could still win a Super Bowl. And that's the difference. Thank you for hustling. The difference with Andy Dalton is I think he's going to go somewhere, maybe like an Indianapolis, maybe Tampa Bay if they do get rid of Jameis Winston. He's going to try to go to a place that will commit to him and have a low draft pick, so you're not immediately going to be able to just draft the guy who's going to take his job as soon as it's convenient for that to happen.
What are we talking about?
We were talking about Andy Dalton.
Oh, wow. You're still talking about it.
Well, I was, yeah. I can ramble forever. Jordan says, Justin Herbert to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Bold, but here's another thing I will say. You already have Gardner Minshew, who looked okay at times. You've just paid Nick Foles a lot of money. Are you spending another top-level pick on a quarterback? I think Jacksonville has more questions to answer. They need receivers. They need offensive linemen. They could probably use a refresher on this defense now. I just don't see it. I don't think Jacksonville's drafting a quarterback this year.
No, I don't think so either. Scott says he thinks Dalton and Rivers are more transition quarterbacks right now. I don't think you could throw Dalton in with the Rivers scenario, but I get it.
He might be. He might be Joe Flacco, where it just didn't work out for you. Even though you're not super ancient yet, We just don't believe in
How
it.
do you put Andy Dalton with Joe Flacco? Andy Dalton has done a lot in his career where Joe Flacco's literally survived off of a great defense.
Well, Joe Flacco's won a Super Bowl. And you could say, oh, well, it's just one Super Bowl.
Off of a great defense.
Sure. Andy Dalton's had some good teams, too. Maybe not as good as the Ravens were, and I'll give you that. But they've had a stretch of 3, 4, 5 years where he went to all those playoffs where their team was good. And he was young and wasn't ready to win.
Maybe if Marvin Lewis was a decent head coach.
And he was young and wasn't ready to win. It was, I think all those things kind of combined together. The difference is Joe Flacco got it done, regardless of what you think about him. And I'm not a Joe Flacco guy. I can't stand him. I think he's one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
True.
And I've thought that since they gave him that new contract after winning the Super Bowl. He's still got the job done. And Andy Dalton has not done that. I don't think he's won a playoff game.
Charlie says Andy Dalton is a bedwetter.
Well, maybe. He was Kirk Cousins before Kirk Cousins. He was the guy that couldn't play on prime time and couldn't win the big games, everything else. Can't win in the playoffs. The difference is he's played for Cincinnati, and since then he's a lot older. He's looked good with some bad weapons, and again, hasn't had the team to succeed. If you put the team around him, maybe, just maybe, Andy Dalton's the guy who can win you a Super Bowl. You don't need to have the best quarterback to win a Super Bowl.
No, you don't.
If you build everything else.
It helps.
It definitely does. And it's the most important position. Yeah. But you can win without having the best guy at the most important position. You just have to have everybody else be great.
Look at Joe Flacco. Look at Eli Manning.
Peyton Manning.
Whoa.
In Denver.
He played well that year.
He played all right. But when you watched him play, everything was a duck coming out of his hand. It was like lollipopping the ball.
That's his second year. Don't get the 2 years mixed up.
Well, I'm talking about the year that they won it. They lost the first one to the Seahawks. And I'm talking about the second one when they won against Carolina.
Again, that's my history messing up. Yeah. You're right. Yeah.
So you can win without the best quarterback.
I get those mixed up because I try to blank them out of my brain because I don't like the Broncos.
Yeah.
And when you make me remember them, I mix them up. Damien says, do you all see Cam Newton going or staying?
Now I see. Well, here's the interesting thing. Forever, I told you this season with their run, Carolina's not going to be in position to draft a quarterback. And now they have like the 7th overall pick. And they're in position to draft Justin Herbert. Or they're in position to draft Jake Fromm. Or they're in position to maybe grab Tua Tagovailoa if everyone else passes. I don't know. And that's the best I can tell you. Because it really depends on who their head coach is going to be. They're going to need to hire him. They're going to need, if they hire Greg Roman, and he's great with running quarterbacks. Look what he's done for Lamar Jackson. You got Cam Newton, Super Bowl quarterback, former MVP. Maybe they give him another year. Maybe they say, we need that pick to get a better position player on this team. Or they're at 7, and Tua's there. Or Herbert's there, and they really like that guy.
We'll find out Tua tomorrow.
And then he's gone. Yeah, well, Tua might not even be in the draft. That's a fantastic point. So, again, Carolina is a huge question mark. But now, more what I like is because they struggled as much as they did, they are in a position to potentially replace Cam Newton if they choose to, as opposed to being just stuck with him. Where you're like, we're not sure Kyle Allen's a guy, but we're not ready to move on from Cam. Maybe we keep him on the roster and just overpay him. They have options, which is good. That's where you want to be. You want to have options.
Would Rivera get Cam to rebuild in Washington? Scott asked.
You have Dwayne Haskins, right?
Yeah, you don't really move on.
You don't give up on the second year, 10th overall pick.
You also have
to
Alex
bring in
Smith
Cam Newton,
possibly
I think.
coming back too. So
and Case Keenum and Colt McCoy and like 1,000 coulda, woulda, shouldas.
Let's talk about this. You got the Texans, you got the Titans, you got the Vikings, and you got the Seahawks.
Mm-hmm.
Which out of these 4 teams, before we get out of here, which out of these 4 teams do you see have the most chance of not just getting the AFC Championship game or NFC Championship game, AFC or NFC, can win it? I'm not even talking about Super Bowl here because I don't.
Get to the Super Bowl.
Just get to the Super Bowl. Which one of these teams, or maybe you like all 1 or 2 of each of these teams?
I'll do you one better. I'll put them in order. Vikings, I think, has the most chance of making it to the Super Bowl because, again, I think this is the best team going into Wild Card Weekend that won their game. Even though I think the Saints were better, this is the team that, of that group, is the best still. Second, I would say Titans. Third, I would say Texans. Fourth, I would say Seahawks.
Wow. I'd probably go Vikings, Seahawks, Titans, Texans.
The reason I say that is just because I believe so much in these NFC teams, and I believe the Packers, despite their struggles and despite not looking sexy doing it, are still an amazing team. I think even more of that of the 49ers, despite their struggles. I think that's the best team in football, or one of the best teams in football. The reason I put the Titans at second is because just the hot streak they're on and the way they throw. I know Tannehill had a bad game against the Patriots and might continue to do so. But if he does bounce back, I think the Titans, when they're on top of their game, it's a shootout almost every game. And not everybody in the AFC can keep up with that.
I'll give you the reason why I say that. I like the way the Vikings play today. They look like they're a very good team, especially playing a team like the Saints. When you go into the 49ers, I think they have a good possibility of beating that team. Even though I think the 49ers will win that game, I think they have a good opportunity. And the reason I give Seattle an edge over the Titans is because of their competition. When I look at what the Titans are going against, it's the Ravens. That team has been playing out of its mind. I get they got 20 days of rest. I don't think that this team is going to see any kind of rust on them. I think they're going to be full-blown going and healthy and ready to roll. And when you look at what that team has done this year, ever minus like week 4 and below or before, this team has been on a roll. So you're talking about a team that's hot. Both these teams are very hot. It just makes me a little nervous. When I look at the Seahawks matchup against the Packers, I think that's a possibility of a game that they can win. When you got Russell Wilson, you got the way DK Metcalf
I'm actually looking beyond that because I'm saying, more than likely it's not going to be both.
Right. I'm just talking about just the next matchups. I mean, I know I asked you about get to the Super Bowl. I think those right there stops that. I think the Texans are definitely the lowest of the group, which I think you agreed with that.
I had Seahawks lower than Texans.
Oh, wow.
But again, I think it's just the respect I have for all the rest of the teams in the NFC. I think it's just the most unlikely because I looked at the way they played the Eagles. Maybe if it's the 49ers they face in the NFC Championship, it's the division rival, and you have that kind of familiarity. And then the Packers, you have the matchup where maybe they just pounded down their throat. But, man, that's a tough road. I think that's tougher than either of the AFC teams have. And yes, it's Baltimore, but again, Lamar Jackson, not a super experienced quarterback in the playoffs. This will only be his second game coming up here. You have Patrick Mahomes, who hasn't played a lot of games in the playoffs himself. I think even though and I know Tannehill's in the same boat, but even though the Titans are one of those teams and the Texans, all those quarterbacks don't have a lot of starts. They could have that bad start, any one of those teams, where it just costs their team. Seahawks, Russell Wilson's been there and done it. Even though Kirk Cousins hasn't really been there in the playoffs, this team is just so complete with the Vikings, and they've been there and done it, that I think they're going to be great. The 49ers, I respect their game plan. I think they're the best team to beat. And then you got Aaron Rodgers, who, like, when you talk about being around the block, Aaron Rodgers has been around the block more times than anyone else in the playoffs at this point. It's not even a slight. I don't want you to take it the wrong way against the Seahawks and think I'm saying they're not the best, but I think they have a hard road to go because I think the NFC is just a better conference. And the reason I like the Vikings better is because they impressed me a lot more this weekend. And right now, the playoffs are all about who's hot. And when you play the way they played, I think they're hotter than the Seahawks, who barely escaped Josh McCown.
It's all an opinion, man, because Chris says he's got the Niners all the way. He said some are still sleeping on the 49ers, and we will prove it at the end. Well, first of all, they're a number 1 seed. So to say that people are sleeping on them, I think it's just because people don't want to see them succeed. I don't think anyone in the NFL is sleeping on them. It's just fan base scenario. So, like, I get what you're saying, Chris, but man, this is
maybe you feel like they're not getting the respect they deserve. Right?
Yeah, that I can give you. I'll give you that. But you got to also remember, where was this team last year? 3 wins. There's a reason why a lot of people have doubt.
I think there's a couple more than that, but yeah, wasn't it?
I don't know. I mean,
I don't think they were that high in the draft.
Nick Bosa, dude.
Oh, they were. Yeah, they were second. Never mind. Take it back. What am I talking about?
And that's the reason why you get that doubt, man. Trust me, we did it all year long. We're like, oh, this is the game.
They haven't played anybody
This
yet.
is the game the 49ers are going to come back down to reality. And guess what? They didn't. So, Chris, keep that up, man. Keep that dog mask on. Stay the underdog, because I think that's the best way to go about it. Because when you are the favorite, then it kind of gets a little bit rougher going into those games.
You go in and say, oh, we got it. We got it. And it's the playoffs, and everybody's good. You can't always say that. A couple more here, and then I swear we'll get out of here. Ian says, Kansas City, Minnesota is still his pick, but in the order like they asked. Okay, and then Charlie said the road to the Super Bowl runs through San Francisco. The Seahawks are done. Well, didn't they beat them in San Fran? And then almost they were like half a yard short of beating them in Seattle as well. This is the team that has given them the most trouble out of anyone this year. Maybe you could say the Saints did, because that game was incredibly close too, but the Saints are gone now. Seahawks are not going to lie down. There's something about division rivalries that it doesn't seem to matter who the better team actually is. they're going to play each other tough, and anything can happen, especially in the playoffs, man. I think the Seahawks might be the team that the 49ers want to play the least.
Michael said it was 4 wins for the 49ers. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It says they're not given the respect.
And you might be right. Maybe we're not talking about them like the way we usually talk about a first overall seed. But I'll say this. They have shown, especially towards the back half, their defense is susceptible. They're not as good as they started. They started playing some of the tougher games, and the defense started to crumble a little bit. We need to see a little bit of a resurgence from that defense.
Charlie says he's going to have the last laugh. Hey, man.
And he might. We're not counting them out either.
We're not picking the winners right now either. All I asked him was, out of the 4 teams, who has the best chance of making the Super Bowl?
And I said the Seahawks were the least. I said the Vikings were the most, and that's NFC still, which means they would have to beat the 49ers. But I also said the Seahawks were the least.
But we didn't talk about the 49ers. We didn't bring them up. Because
right.
if I asked you, the NFC, which team would you consider in the Super Bowl right now? Which team in the NFC?
Well, I've said 49ers from the
exactly.
The
that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Mm-hmm.
We're not sitting there saying that they're not good.
I said 49ers Chiefs beforehand. Again, I think people are still sleeping on the Chiefs. I think just because they struggled a little bit this season, now I think they're starting to wake up a little bit because they're like, oh man, Patriots are out of it. And I still think there's too many people ready to just hand the crown over to Baltimore. But you got to remember, the Browns beat this team.
Yeah.
I think Baltimore, even though they're a great team, even though they run the ball really well, let's see what they look like against the Titans. Because if they come out and just mash the Titans, maybe then I'll be like, oh, maybe they are going to win it.
Yeah.
But there's a good chance all this rest, everything else, young team, had a lot of rollover, a lot of new defensive players, a lot of guys that came in late. They could look bad. And if they just struggle against the Titans, then have to go play the Chiefs the next week, just watch. That's all I can say. Just watch.
All right, one last comment and let's get out of here, man. Jordan said, should the Lions bring back Connor Cook? No, man, they're not going to. It's not going to happen. There's a reason he's out of the league right now. Even if he goes into the XFL and succeeds, it would be a long shot before him to get back. I mean, I know he played for the Raiders. I know it wasn't super exciting for him, but there's a reason that he never made it.
I agree. Scott says, all bad games aside, if everyone plays like they should, he'll go with Ravens and 49ers. First seeds against each other. But, again, Kansas City, didn't they beat the Ravens? I think it's anyone's game. I know this time they'll have to play in Baltimore, but I think they did the first time, didn't they? Was that in KC?
Yes.
Do you remember?
No.
In Baltimore.
Yep.
And let's not forget, Titans beat Kansas City, so it's rock, paper, scissors at that point.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Seriously, it's still anyone's game.
One of the hardest things to do is to beat
a team twice in a year.
team twice in a year. Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
All right, we'll keep going. I know we said we're done with comments and we'll get out of here, but a couple more I want to read. Damien says, if the Ravens and Seahawks get eliminated next week, would it affect the MVP talk between Wilson and Jackson? No. One of those two guys is going to win it, and his name is Lamar Jackson.
Yes, he will.
I think regardless of whether you think he should win it or whether you think he shouldn't, with the popularity and the way he's kind of just the rise from a guy that was a huge question mark to now looking like an amazing quarterback, they're going to give it to him. We knew Russell Wilson was going to be good.
Yeah.
But when you get the surprise of Lamar Jackson coming in from last year, he's winning the MVP.
He's the media
wonder
boy.
Yeah. Exactly. He already has it, in my opinion. It's already done and dusted. And Chris says we'll see how everything plays out. I agree. And we're glad you're here with us, Charlie, man. It was fun. Drew, we'll get some special thanks.
Yeah, guys, thank you again for all the likes, comments, and shares. It means the world to us. We love the love that everyone gives us. Charlie, thank you so much for that comment. But Jeremy, Luke, Michael, Ian, Bees, Frank, Austin, Ken, Neil, Eric, Charlie, Sean, Chris, Dalton, Cameron, Scott, Eric, John, Bill, Chris, JDZ, Rob, Joseph, Damon, Jordan, Andrew, Brian. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much.
And I'm going to give special thanks to your chair because it talked enough tonight. I feel like I should give it a mention. Everything, dude, maybe it's even mine.
And then when I want to make it happen, it won't do it.
Okay, so all I'm saying, Drew, maybe hit the treadmill. Maybe we get a little bit less squeaking, and or maybe it's me. Maybe I need to hit the treadmill,
dude.
because I'm not even sure.
You know what?
I'm still not even sure.
I'm about to poke your... Then all the hot air comes out. All you hear is... And then you just flate into nothing.
I'm this tall again.
You flate into
Titans
nothing.
are winning the Super Bowl! But
that's pretty much what your voice sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate that. Guys.
You called me fat!
I did, yeah.
I am fat. That's a problem. You don't call fat people fat.
I'm just speaking the truth, Drew. Everyone hates you when you tell them the truth. We'll be back on Tuesday.
Wow.
And hopefully Drew will be a little bit trimmer. But I'm just kidding.
Wow.
We'll be back on Tuesday to talk about something.
Not sports, obviously.
Wait.
Jesus.
Welcome to The Biggest Loser. We'll be back on Tuesday to talk about something going on. I don't know what it's going to be. Pretty much anything you want to talk about, as well as whatever I want to talk about and whatever Drew wants to talk about. We're going to come up with something to talk about. I know we said we are going to do some awards. I don't even know. But we'll be back on Tuesday, 7:45 Eastern, 6:45 Central. All I can promise is it'll be a fun time. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but it'll be fun.
Get out of here.
Have a good night, guys. Thanks.